There comes a time in your life when you realize that being yourself might cost you everything. That's what happens to Benson. After years of managing chaos, of being the responsible one, of everyone expecting him to keep things together, something breaks. The breaking point sneaks up on him disguised as help. This is the Benson who's learned that suppressing who you are has consequences. Someone who's discovered what it means to literally explode. Benson thought being a nicer boss would be his path to respect. Instead, it became the moment where everything got dangerous. What happens when the manager who's always been direct gets told his natural style is toxic and nobody knows how to handle what comes next? Before we get into it, make sure to hit that subscribe button. In Think Positive, Pops tells Benson to stop yelling at Mordecai and Rigby. Pops says yelling is bad and threatens to fire Benson if he doesn't stop. Think about how crazy this is. Benson has been their boss for years. He knows these guys better than anyone. But Pops, who plays with toys all day, suddenly thinks he knows how to manage them better. This is like your boss telling you how to do your job when they've never actually done it themselves. Benson agrees because he needs his job. He has to pretend his way of talking to people is wrong. This happens all the time. People get told their personality is the problem, when really they're just dealing with difficult situations. Pops says this is about keeping everyone happy. But Mordecai and Rigby use soda to clean things and paint walls with their bodies. Maybe they shouldn't be happy about doing such bad work. Maybe feeling bad would actually help them do better, but everyone thinks hurting feelings is the worst thing ever. So they mess with Benson instead of telling the lazy guys to step up. This is that fake positive stuff where everyone has to feel good, even when they're doing terrible work. Benson tries everything to control his anger. He looks up tips online, buys a self-help video for $60, tries meditation. The video has this guy, Fitch, and his dog Kimmy, promising to fix anger problems. Benson watches it, hoping someone else has the answer. The meditation part is hard to watch. Benson sits in his apartment going, while thinking about work stress. You can see him trying so hard to force himself to be calm when it feels completely wrong. At work, Benson keeps trying to meditate, and he sits there going, while Mordecai and Rigby wreck everything around him. They're covered in paint, breaking stuff. Someone steals the golf cart. Any normal person would be angry, but Benson forces himself to stay calm because he's been told his feelings are wrong. You can see him getting more stressed with each ohm. His face gets red. His voice sounds strained. The meditation doesn't help. It makes things worse because he's fighting his natural reactions while chaos happens everywhere. The flashback to Benson's family shows where he learned to communicate. At dinner, young Benson politely asks for the salt. His dad stops everyone and tells Benson he needs to speak louder. His dad literally says he'll never get anything in life if he doesn't yell for it. Young Benson learns that being loud gets results. This family scene explains everything about how Benson manages people, though he grew up learning that quiet requests get ignored and only being forceful gets things done. When Pops tells him to stop yelling, he's asking Benson to forget everything his family taught him. The nightmare where Giant Pops fires him shows how scared Benson is of authority figures punishing him for being himself. Even as a kid, he learned that speaking up could get him in trouble, but staying quiet meant not getting what he needed. When Benson finally breaks at the crashed golf cart, things get weird. He sees Mordecai and Rigby laughing about destroying another expensive thing. This is when all his held-back anger starts showing up physically. His gumballs turn orange and catch fire. The change happens slowly. You see Benson trying to say he won't yell, but his body shows he's losing control. His gumballs get brighter, sparks fly off him. The ground cracks under his feet as he tries to contain all that built-up anger. Then, Benson becomes this scary ball of fire that starts pulling everything toward him. Cars, trees, even Muscle Man's whole trailer gets sucked in. The show literally shows what happens when you force someone to bottle up their feelings. They eventually explode in much worse ways. Skips figures out what's happening first. He understands that Benson is keeping all his anger inside instead of letting it out normally. When Pops admits he told Benson to stop yelling, everyone realizes they created this mess. Mordecai and Rigby try to make Benson explode by insulting him. They call him a loser and tell him to go back to school. Since Benson can't respond normally, the anger just builds up more. This shows how fake niceness can actually be more dangerous than honest arguing. When Pops finally realizes he messed up, it's too late. The park is getting destroyed and everyone might die. He has to literally order Benson to yell to save everyone. Pops shouts that if Benson doesn't yell right now, he's fired. This proves Benson's way of managing wasn't the problem. Trying to change it was. Benson's big explosion is both awesome and scary. He lets out this huge rant about how Mordecai and Rigby drive him crazy with their laziness. A yellow beam shoots from his mouth right at them, while everyone else gets blown backward. What Benson says shows his real problems with them. He talks about trying to teach them to be responsible and how they can't follow simple directions. He mentions how they care more about looking cool than doing their jobs. These aren't mean insults, they're true things about their work that he's been keeping inside. You can hear Benson's voice breaking as he yells. There are tears on his face that get blown away by the wind from his own power. This shows his anger comes from caring about work and wanting his employees to do well, not from enjoying fights. The explosion makes a huge crater, where Mordecai and Rigby were standing. It's so powerful it makes them temporarily deaf. Benson falls down afterward, completely tired from letting out all that emotion at once. After almost killing everyone, Benson says sorry to Pops for losing control. Even after being put in an impossible situation, he still thinks it's his fault. This shows what happens when people get convinced their natural reactions are wrong. They blame themselves, even when they're the victim. Pops does say sorry and admits he was wrong. He tells Benson that from now on, he'll let the park manager actually manage the park. They shake hands, and Pops admits that trying to control how Benson talks was a mistake. The ending shows Benson going back to his normal way of managing. He looks down at Mordecai and Rigby in their crater and tells them to
Clean this mess up or you're fired.
Everyone laughs because they finally get that this is just how Benson talks effectively. The funny part is that Mordecai and Rigby can't hear the laughter because they're temporarily deaf from the explosion. They look confused and ask each other what everyone's laughing about. It reminds us of the real damage that happened because someone tried to fix something that wasn't actually broken. This whole episode shows how different people need different kinds of communication. Mordecai and Rigby have shown over and over that they don't listen to polite requests. They need clear, firm directions to understand that their actions matter. Society wants to pretend one way of talking works for everyone, but that's not how real life works. The episode also shows how tiring it is to constantly fight against your natural personality. Benson spends the whole episode trying to force himself into a shape that doesn't fit. This kind of fake behavior is exhausting and can't last forever, which is why it leads to a complete breakdown. Most of us have dealt with some version of this pressure. Whether it's being told you're too intense, too direct, or too negative, lots of people learn to water down who they are to make others comfortable. But what does that constant hiding cost us? This happens especially at work, where speaking up about problems gets you labeled as causing drama. People learn to smile and stay quiet, even when they see serious issues. Holding back honest feedback doesn't make problems go away. It just lets them get worse while everyone pretends everything is fine. The show gets at something important about being emotionally real. When Benson tries meditation and anger management, he's basically trying to become someone else. There's a difference between learning better communication skills and completely hiding your natural reactions. Benson's anger actually serves important purposes. It tells people when they've crossed lines, motivates him to fix problems, and shows his employees that their actions have real consequences. When that anger gets hidden, those important functions disappear and bigger problems grow. The episode also shows how people with less power often have to be more dramatic to get the same attention as people with more power. Mordecai and Rigby can cause thousands of dollars in damage without facing real consequences, but Benson has to yell to get them to pay attention. Mordecai and Rigby try to make Benson explode by insulting him. They call him a— This reflects real workplace situations, where middle managers get squeezed between unrealistic expectations from above and difficult employees below. They're expected to get results while only using positive methods, even when those methods don't work with their specific team. The supernatural stuff works as a symbol for how hidden emotions show up in unexpected ways. When people can't express frustration directly, it might come out as passive aggression, manipulation, or sudden explosive fights that destroy relationships. Benson turning into a fiery ball represents what happens when normal human emotions get pushed down instead of being dealt with. The destructive power comes from hiding and then explosively releasing emotions. Everyone focuses on Benson's anger problem instead of the workplace mess that created the anger. When the park gets destroyed, people still want to talk about how Benson communicates rather than why two employees can consistently fail at their jobs without consequences. This mirrors real situations where people who point out problems get blamed for creating them. The person bringing up the issue becomes the issue, while the actual problems get ignored. It's easier to silence the person complaining than fix what they're complaining about. The episode suggests that healthy workplaces need both real expression and good communication. Benson's yelling might not be perfect, but it's honest and gets results. Completely stopping it creates bigger problems than improving it would. What makes this episode powerful is how it validates people who've been told their communication style is wrong. Sometimes being direct, firm, or loud is appropriate and necessary. Not every situation calls for gentle positivity, and pretending otherwise can be harmful. The show demonstrates why it's important to understand someone's communication style before trying to change it. Pops decided Benson's yelling was negative and had to stop, without thinking about whether it served a purpose. This surface judgment ignores how complex workplace relationships really are. Benson's breakdown serves as a warning about caring more about appearance than effectiveness. By focusing on how Benson expressed concerns rather than dealing with the actual issues, Pops created a much more serious problem. Regular show episodes often explore the tension between being authentic and meeting social expectations. In Benson Be Gone, we see what happens when Benson gets replaced by someone who seems nicer, but is actually more destructive. This reinforces that surface-level pleasantness can hide deeper problems. The show also highlights how protecting people from honest feedback actually hurts them. By shielding Mordecai and Rigby from Benson's direct communication, Pops prevents them from learning and growing. They keep making the same mistakes because nobody clearly explains the consequences. This connects to broader patterns where we avoid giving honest feedback because we're afraid of seeming mean. This false kindness often prevents people from developing necessary skills. Real kindness sometimes requires uncomfortable conversations. The explosion scene shows what happens when unaddressed issues build up over time. All the unexpressed frustrations pile up until they explode in ways that damage everyone. Regular honest communication could have prevented the destruction. Benson's tears during his rant show that his anger comes from caring about his work and wanting his employees to succeed. He's yelling because he's frustrated that he sees potential being wasted and problems that could be easily solved. This emotional complexity gets lost when we label all expressions of anger as negativity. Understanding where emotions come from and what purpose they serve matters more than judging whether they feel comfortable to witness. The episode also explores how different people need different communication approaches. Pops' gentle style works for him, but doesn't work for Mordecai and Rigby. Instead of recognizing these differences, there's an assumption that one style is better than others. This reflects workplace training that tries to make everyone communicate the same way, instead of helping people work with different styles. The result is often decreased effectiveness, as people get forced into patterns that don't match who they are. The show reveals something disturbing about how we treat managers. Benson is expected to get results from employees who actively resist doing their jobs, but he's not allowed to use the communication methods that actually work. It's like being asked to drive a car while being told you can't use the steering wheel. This connects to broader issues about leadership expectations. We want leaders who can solve problems and maintain order, but we also want them to do it in ways that never make anyone uncomfortable. This creates impossible standards that set leaders up for failure. The episode shows us what happens when workplace hierarchies get confused. Pops technically outranks Benson, but he doesn't understand the day-to-day reality of managing difficult employees. He makes decisions based on what feels right to him, rather than what actually works in practice. This happens in real workplaces all the time. Upper management sees complaints about a manager's style and assumes the style is the problem. They don't look at whether that style actually gets results or whether it's necessary for that specific team. Benson's apartment scenes reveal how much this situation affects his personal life. He's so desperate to fix his anger problem that he's willing to spend $60 on a self-help program. He tries everything: online tips, meditation tapes, breathing exercises. You can see how alone he feels trying to solve this by himself. The fact that Benson lives alone and has to figure this out by himself makes the situation even sadder. He doesn't have anyone to talk to about whether Pops' demands make sense. He just assumes he must be wrong and tries to change himself to fit what others want. When Benson practices meditation in his apartment, you see him trying to convince himself that this new approach will work. He's sitting in his small living room, repeating Om, and trying to believe that hiding his natural reactions is somehow healthier. The episode also shows how Benson's stress affects how he looks. Throughout the episode, he gets progressively redder and more agitated. You can see the toll that emotional hiding takes on his body. His gumballs start changing color even before the final explosion. When Benson tries counting to 100, the scene builds tension perfectly. You watch him get to 77, 78, and you know something bad is about to happen. The counting becomes this desperate attempt to stay in control while everything falls apart around him. The golf cart crash that triggers Benson's final explosion is perfect because it represents everything wrong with the situation. Mordecai and Rigby destroy another piece of expensive equipment while laughing about it. Any reasonable manager would be furious, but Benson has been told that being furious is wrong. The transformation sequence works because it shows what emotional hiding actually feels like. The fire represents all the anger building up inside, and the gravitational pull shows how that hidden energy starts affecting everything around you. When Muscle Man's trailer gets sucked into Benson's orbit, it shows how workplace dysfunction spreads beyond just the people directly involved. Everyone in the park starts getting affected by the consequences of forcing someone to hide their natural management style. The episode also shows how the people causing the original problems often don't face any real consequences. While Benson is being forced to change his entire personality, Mordecai and Rigby continue destroying property and ignoring their responsibilities. The focus is entirely on managing Benson's reaction, rather than addressing their behavior. The beam of energy that comes from Benson's mouth during his explosion represents pure, concentrated frustration finally being expressed. All the legitimate workplace concerns he's been holding inside come out at once, but in a destructive way because they were suppressed for so long. What makes this explosion both satisfying and tragic is that everything Benson says is completely valid. His complaints about Mordecai and Rigby are accurate and professional. If he had been allowed to express these concerns normally over time, they could have been addressed constructively. The content of Benson's rant also reveals something important about his character. He's not just angry about the inconvenience Mordecai and Rigby cause him personally. He's not just mad about broken equipment. He's sad about wasted potential and missed opportunities for growth. Mordecai and Rigby's temporary deafness serves as both a consequence and a metaphor. They literally can't hear the resolution, where everyone finally understands why Benson's communication style was necessary. They missed the learning moment because they were too close to the explosion they helped cause. They remain confused while everyone else gains clarity. Pops' final acknowledgement that he should leave park management to the park manager represents the kind of organizational learning that needs to happen more often. Sometimes people in authority need to admit they don't understand every aspect of the jobs they oversee. The handshake between Pops and Benson symbolizes mutual respect and understanding. Pops respects Benson's expertise, and Benson respects Pops' willingness to admit his mistake. This is how healthy workplace relationships should function. What makes this resolution meaningful is that both characters learn something. Pops learns to trust his manager's judgment about management techniques. Benson learns that his natural style, while sometimes loud, is actually valuable and necessary. Neither person has to completely change who they are. Think Positive ultimately argues that having different communication styles makes teams stronger, not weaker. Benson's direct approach balances Pops' gentle style, and both are needed for a workplace that actually functions. The problem started when someone decided only one style was acceptable. Through Benson's painful but educational experience, the episode teaches us that emotional authenticity is about effectiveness and sustainable relationships. When people can be themselves, they're more productive and more capable of genuine connection with others. If you got something out of this video, hit that subscribe button and I'll catch you in the next one.